This video is sponsored by Stack Audio, manufacturers of the Orva speaker and equipment isolation feet used by a British audiophile. For more information about these and other products, please click the link in the description. When a product comes in for review, I unbox it, take an image of it and post it on my Patreon page with my initial impressions. That way they get a bit of a heads up as to what's coming in for review. With the Cambridge Audio EXA100, one of my Patreons commented, "Here's a brand that stayed true to its roots." I think he's spot on. Cambridge Audio have always been about providing value for money. The company's EXA35 is one of my favourite amplifiers below £1,000, despite it only having a £349 price tag. As long as the speakers are easy to drive, it will produce a wide, rich, detailed sound. I've also reviewed the Cambridge Audio CXA61 for £699, sometimes on sale for less. You get more power, a well-implemented integrated DAC, and sonic improvement over the EXA35 whilst maintaining a similar sound signature. Both the EXA35 and CXA61 won my top outstanding award, so when Cambridge Audio launched the EXA100 amplifier to sit above the CX range in October 2024, I was going to hang around too long before deciding to review it. Let's get started. The Cambridge Audio EXA100 retails for £1,999. It's a standard rack width unit with a combination of milled aluminium and acrylic front panel. The rest of the chassis is of pretty standard construction. Clearly the money hasn't been spent on fancy casework, but it's reassuringly heavy for amplifiers in this class, with a mass of 13 kilograms or 28 pounds. A button takes the unit out of standby. There's a 6.3mm 1/4" headphone socket, direct access to the inputs, as well as the ability to switch between speaker set A, B or both. I've previously stated that I'm not a fan of these black buttons against a black acrylic fascia. In low light conditions, it's not clear where to press to make changes. The volume dial is smooth and has a reasonable resistance. The supplied remote control isn't going to win any prizes for design innovation, but it has comprehensive functionality and will control other CA devices. The EXA100 is a comprehensively featured device. On the top left, other than various connections for system integration, is a switch to toggle between lifted and chassis connected signal ground, which can help to reduce hum with certain turntables. There are two sets of speaker terminals. The digital inputs are run along the top. Nice to see HDMI ARC for easy integration with TVs. There's also Bluetooth, USB coaxial and two optical Toslink connections. As always, Cambridge Audio label them so that you can read them from above. Analog connections are below. There's a subwoofer output, pre-outs, 3 line level inputs and an input that can directly access the power amp to use with home cinema receivers, and there's a balanced XLR input. Did you spot it? No phono stage. Seems a little strange on such a well-featured device. I did get some information about this from Cambridge Audio and I don't want to misquote their official line, so I'm just going to read out a passage from the email. "The quality of the phono stage we could integrate wouldn't match the quality that this amp deserves, and we wouldn't be happy with the compromise." Now, I understand that to some extent, but I would have thought a moving magnet phono stage would have been possible. Moving coil is a different case scenario because you're dealing with such low-level signals, but there are plenty of very good amplifiers at this price that have well-integrated moving magnet phono stages. I suspect it just wasn't possible to do that and achieve the target price below £2,000. Here's the internals of the EXA100. That is a very large toroidal transformer. I'm guessing around 500 VA, possibly more, and that's why this thing weighs 13 kilograms, where many of its competitors weigh around 10 kilograms. Flanking it left and right are two large heat sinks. They'll contribute to the weight a little bit as well, but what it suggests is there's a fairly decent Class A bias on the output devices, and that helps to smooth out the mid-range and remove any graininess from the treble. Here are the filter caps. There are actually 8 of them, but a couple of them are tucked away neatly under some bracing. Hopefully you can see one just there. They're from Epcos, which is a mid-tier capacitor manufacturer, so nothing particularly fancy about them. I did get a bit excited when I saw 8 of them, thought there's going to be a load of filter capacitance, but each one has a fairly modest rating of 4,700 microfarads, so that's only 37,600 microfarads in total. Now, given the size of this toroidal transformer, I'd have liked to have seen more. The Audiolab 9000A has 60,000 microfarads, so it would have been nice to see at least that much. More filter capacitance, in my experience, always results in tighter bass and improved transient response. This is a dual mono design, so you've got 2 power amplifier modules separated, mounted to the other side of those heat sinks. And this kind of architecture helps to improve channel separation because you've got less crosstalk between the left and right channels. I'm going to change the angle so you can get a better look at one of the power amplifier modules. Yeah, that's a much better angle to look at one of the power amplifier modules. The output devices, you can see 2 of them there, mounted to the heatsink, between the heatsink and the power amplifier board. There are actually 4 of them in this push-pull design, 2 NPN and 2 PNP. They're the same output devices used in the flagship Edge model, which is around £5,000, but that's going to have more of them, obviously. And this amplifier is rated at 100 watts per channel into 8 ohms and 155 watts per channel into 4 ohms. The actual power amplifier board itself has lots of discrete components, but there are quite a few surface mount components. Things like Atl and Exposure at this price have through-hole components, which will handle heat better and lower distortion. Preamplifier board runs along the bottom, and it runs all the way along, but you can't see it because there's boards mounted on top. So I'll talk briefly about a couple of those boards. That one there is for system control, and this is the digital board, which has the Bluetooth module board mounted on top of it. And the DAC section is there with the HDMI interface, etc, etc. There is an ESS9018 chip that I was able to point out, which is here. That's a very old chip now. It's been around for, I should imagine, at least 10 years. It can sound half decent if well implemented, even with amplifiers at this price. There is another small board here in between, so preamplifier board there, digital board there, and this is for the XLR input. So that's what we have overall. I'm not going to do a separate section on the setup and partner equipment like I normally do, and the reason is that this thing is pretty much plug and play, and getting the speaker choice right is such an integral part to ensuring that it sounds good. This is going to be a better review if I do it all in one section. So let me start by saying this. There are some things that the EXA100 does magnificently well. Most amplifiers at this price make my Proac Response 1 SEs sound small and dynamically flat. This is true of the similarly priced Audiolab 9000A that I recently reviewed. The £1,800 quad Revela ones also need amplifiers with plenty of current to get them going. Even the 9000Q preamp and 9000P power amp, which cost £2,499 for the pair, struggled to drive these speakers. Not the EXA100, it drove my Proacs on the quad Revela ones well, but I should point out that the Audiolab house sound is very different to Cambridge Audio. It's all about precision control and a fairly linear tonal balance, whereas the Cambridge Audio is about scale, warmth and unapologetically coloured. The Atl Iron200 is the only other solid-state amplifier I can think of for around £2,000 that can deliver a soundstage as wide as the EXA100 with demanding speakers. The Iron200 has recently been updated, but I've only heard the previous model with the signature designation. Both amplifiers share a similar tonality as well as sense of scale. The soundstage is very deep and well layered, and there's respectable localization of performers. The EXA100 definitely has a particular sound. The bass is weighty with decent definition. There's some bloom and bleed through to the mid-range, but it's not excessive, and it gives this Cambridge audio amplifier a warm tonal balance. The mid-range is a bit of a mixed bag. There's very good macro detail, but micro detail is a little bit glossed over compared to the best in class. Playing one of my favourite Miles Davis tracks, Mood from the ESP album, confirms that the EXA100 does a wonderful job of separating out all the masterful performers in this quintet. Ron Carter's bass and Tony Williams' drums have a meaty quality, but the timbre to Herbie Hancock's piano and the texture to Miles's trumpet and Wayne Shorter's sax is not fully revealed. It's evident that some harmonic information is missing due to a degree of opaqueness in the mid-range, but the high frequencies are better expressed. I have no complaints the way that cymbals hit and decay. The upper mid-range is a little bit recessed, combined with a weighty bass and full lower mid-range. This gives the EXA100 an easy listening presentation. My Exposure 2510 is £49 cheaper than the EXA100 at £1,950. It reveals significantly more subtle inflections in vocals and acoustic instruments with many of my reference recordings. The Exposure 2510 has the finesse to do my Product Response 1 SCs and the Quad Revela 1s justice, but doesn't have the current to deliver sufficient scale. The EXA100 has the scale, but not the finesse, and that's the trade-off. I have to jump up to £3,250 and my Hegel H190 before I get the best of both worlds. The bass control from the H190 is also in a different class to the EXA100, and it has a more even tonality. Okay, so let's talk about some speakers that are less demanding. The EXA100 can be used to tame slightly bright sounding speakers like the £799 Monitor Audio Silver 100 7Gs. A nicely balanced tonal delivery was achieved with the Cambridge audio amplifier. Don't be misled by the price tag. The Silver 100s are the most resolving speakers I've heard below £1,000 by some considerable margin. The pair work really well together from low volumes to as loud as I care to play, with peaks just exceeding 90 decibels. However, you can't just partner the amp with any speakers that sit on the lean side of neutral. The synergy with my £1,500 Amphion Argon 1s was off. They sounded very dull. The Argon 1s are very congenial to a wide range of amplifiers. I'm not sure why they didn't work with the EXA100. Sometimes you put two good products together and all their weaknesses come to the fore rather than their strengths. I used the Denafrips Aries 12-1, which is a circa £1,000 external DAC for most of my listening tests, but I did also test the internal DAC in the EXA100. The Aries did open up the soundstage quite a bit and provide more detail, but the internal ESS-based DAC is very well implemented. I'd say it's equivalent to external DACs, very good external DACs that I've heard for around £300. So if you're going to upgrade, don't do it in bite sizes. I think that about covers it. Time to wrap things up. The Cambridge Audio EXA100 is a fully equipped amplifier, bar an internal phono stage. It will drive many difficult speakers where most amplifiers at this price struggle. It's all presented in a huge soundstage which is wide and deep, with a very good placement of performers that are extremely well separated. All the big stuff it does great, the little stuff not so great. It isn't the last word in extracting fine detail from your recordings, and it has a distinctly warm and easygoing presentation. Some care also needs to be taken with partnering speakers. It isn't going to be the first choice for the most analytical of audiophiles, but there are many people who are going to find its strengths appealing. The Cambridge Audio EXA100 gets a highly recommended from this channel. My question for today is, what are your experiences of built-in DACs and phono stages fitted to amplifiers? I know as people go up in price, they tend to go for external boxes, and you tend to find more purist amplifier solutions that don't have them fitted in anyway, but where are the boundary lines for you? Please share that in the comments section. I'm sure you know what to do by now. If you want to support me here on what I do, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Check me out on Patreon. There's a couple of tiers you can access there if you think I can help you on your audiophile journey. Also check out the ABA Club on Patreon, which has some great ways to interact with me and fellow Patreons. But for today, for now, a British audiophile signing off.